Yeah, I mean, even Aaron Glenn, who we've defended, easy. Shout out to him to defend the Glenn. That was because a lot of Lions fans, it was a lot of pressure on Aaron Glenn, and I think we all could see it. Just talking, we were talking about sports at the time too last year, and on a different network, and we all agreed mutually, given what he was given, it was tough. A young defense, guys that were, you're signing guys middle of the season like Kindle Vildor to come start for you. I mean, it was not ideal for him. And then if he came back and played really well, and we talked about this year that AG this year a little bit of an under a microscope, even though he has a young defense, but people are going to be looking at that defense like, what can they do? You know what they have offensively, especially with Ben. But if he went on a podcast, and shout out to Easy for tweeting this out, but talked more about what him and AG discussed in terms of him being able to identify and execute blitzes, because he turned into an absolute menace at the end of the year too, getting after the quarterback, making big plays in the backfield. So let's listen to Iffy on that meeting with AG, and then we'll talk a little bit about AG and Iffy. But here's that clip. Let's check it out.
Definitely. AG, our defensive coordinator, he loved blitzing. Like, as you guys seen, it's either blitzing the nickel or he's blitzing the linebacker, or he's blitzing me, really. And it was just like, there was play calls you would get in the huddle, and you just know once he called it, yeah, I'm getting a sack. I'm getting a sack. Like 100%. I'm getting a sack, or I'm getting a quarterback hit. And yeah, I think that's something he's always gonna have that in his game. And especially how I did it blitzing. I think he's definitely gonna carry that over into next season.
Got to.
And he thinks a lot about that stuff. Like, I'll be in his office like after practice and after meetings, and he'll explain the blitzes to me too. Like, you're gonna show this way. Don't show it too early. It's gonna be open. It's either gonna be you or the running back, or he'll tell me like, no one's gonna be there for you. It's just gonna be you. So I'm excited to see what the things he comes up with next year.
Damn, how does that help you though? Because I know, like, just having those meetings, getting those mental reps before you even in the game system, like, and then that shit showing the same way that you already thought about it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like, bro, he's so smart. Like, a couple times he done told me like, it's gonna show up exactly like this, like that. The Broncos play where I strip sack on Russell Wilson. We called that exact blitz to that exact play like 3 times, once a day, like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And usually it never happened like that. You run this play call against this coverage, but in game they ran this coverage, or you run this play call against, and then you run this coverage against this, and they run the ball. It was the exact play, bro. Like, I can't make this shit up. It was the exact play. And that happens a lot. Boy, AG, that'll happen a lot. So definitely good. Just, meeting with him, even if it's just like 5 extra minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Sometimes it was over an hour, and just he'll give me like little advice, me and the other safety, Kirby Joseph. And then it will show up in the game. So that was good. I'm definitely going to continue to do that.
I mean, hey.
How about that?
I think this is my thing with AG, and we've talked about it a lot, but I think Ben Johnson, rightfully so, is a wizard. And you've mentioned this too, Lucas, a lot. Last year, his adjustment to, work with what he had and make the right adjustments and kind of get everything he could out of this defense, despite having Kindle Vildor. No offense to him, but he's getting taken advantage of right now. I mean, we're just taking shots because it's true. He was starting out there at corner. Cam Sutton was hurt. He wasn't playing well. He's playing awful. Like, he put some things together, and to hear Iffy's perspective on meeting with him and AG calling things before it happens. Like, I think AG is much more dialed in, much more qualified to be a defensive coordinator. Very, very smart. And he's done a really good job of developing players. He's done that very, very well, which Iffy took some time, but look at him last year. I mean, and now you're hearing directly from the horse's mouth here. Iffy saying, yeah, I met with AG, and he would say, X, Y, Z is going to happen. This is what you're going to do. And he would go out there, and it would happen exactly as AG said, which he deserves credit for that. I mean, he does.
Yeah, I mean, that gives you confidence too, especially when you're a DB just flying around the field. When you have a defensive coach who is a former corner, he's going to want to play a lot of press man-to-man. So you got to be aggressive, but you got to be playing confident. You can't think. You just got to be coached to know how to do it, because once you start thinking, when you're doing those blitz plays, 1 second, somebody's going to be wide open down the field. If you're out of position, there's going to be wide open passing lane, running lane, whatever. So the fact that these players just have so much trust and those things have happened, especially young in their career, that's when you can really see. I think Iffy was a guy that honestly kind of saved the season defensively for the team, especially when Aaron Glenn made those defensive adjustments. I'm Booner, you said it, and I agree with you. If Melifonwu were to play that last stretch of the season over the full season, he was the best defensive back in football, let alone safety. He was the best defensive back in football if he can do that. I don't expect him to come out and replicate that, but with so much more talent, with the style that Aaron Glenn plays, I think these players are just going to see ball, get ball. And I think that the style that Aaron Glenn plays, those are the types of defenses. You look at Steve Spagnuolo, you look at what Jim Harbaugh does in Baltimore, the man-to-man defenses that just send the house and play aggressive. That's just going for the offense's throat and creating plays for your defense, and that's the style that wins Super Bowls in this league. I'm really excited to see what Aaron Glenn does, because I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'll say it 1,000 times. I do not see a situation where Aaron Glenn does not show up this year and improve this defense in a significant way where they're in Super Bowl contention. You're not worried about the defense being an absolute liability. I think there's going to be some weaknesses in this defense, just like every NFL defense. But so from what we've been seeing over the last four to 3 seasons with the Lions, I think it's going to be a night and day difference this year.
Yeah, the biggest thing too, I've said this a million times, and I wasn't one of the defend the Glenn guys. I was more so one of the guys at the beginning of the year when things were going wrong on the defensive side of the ball, when you knew you had a top 5 offense, to where I had faith in AG. It was just like, hey, like you have to, like, we get it that you don't have the pieces right now. CJ went down. Iffy was injured at the time. Like, he didn't have the pieces. He didn't have the defensive line that, you know, you were sitting there expecting that Brad Holmes thought he was going into the year with. You had Kendall Vildor on the outside. It was a point last year to where it was like, hey, you just have to scheme something up to go out there and at least give your team a chance to win. And I think all credit to AG. There was a point in the season where AG went out there and did that, and he said, "Hey, we're switching things up here. We'll give up big plays. We'll send different guys like Iffy. We'll send different blitzes. We'll do different things, and different schemes to kind of go out there and do what we can with what we have." And I think that's the thing. Like, credit to AG for doing that, first of all, and now the fact that he's going into year 4, and he has in my mind, outside of the edge group, he has a legit NFL defensive roster and players that he's able to go out there and use now and do whatever he needs to do. Like he has a secondary now. Like, they went out and addressed the secondary more than almost any team in football. You trade for Carlton Davis, you draft 2 corners, you bring Amik Robertson in, you still bring back, you still have Iffy, Kirby Joseph. Like, there's no excuses when it comes to that now. Now it's just more so like going out there and doing. I think AG could do it. I'll say it now. This is what's going to happen. Lock it in. I'm not going to go top 10, but it is a guarantee, a Booner guarantee that AG will have a top 15 defense. Like, they were 25th last year. They're going from 25th or 26th. Whoa. Whoa. It's going to be top 15 no matter what. Like, you can't have this defense that you have and have a defensive coordinator. Like, there was a reason Aaron Glenn had head coaching opportunities at the end of last season and was in taking interviews. And yeah, Jeff, we said, obviously it's because he's a man of the people and he knows what players need, and he's very good at being kind of the team guy and building a culture and talking to players. Like, that is a big reason as get a head coach job. But he also knows, as a defensive guy, we see in the NFL, defensively, head coaches don't get jobs that often. DeMeco Ryans got it, but teams love offensive guys. And AG took all those interviews. So I think, like, AG is going to get this team at least top 15. That is a lock. Now, I think they can get to the top 10 and get to 9, 10, 11, 9, 10. Like, I do think that's completely possible, because I've said it now. I'll say it now. I've said it a million times. The Super Bowl runs through this defense. We know what the offense is. It's a top 5 offense. If this defense steps up and becomes top 10, you're going to win a Super Bowl. And I think AG can put it together and go out there and do it. It's just, we just have to see it at this point. Like, now it's all about just visualize. Like, I just need to see
manifesting the Boone.
Yeah, we could talk all we want. AG could talk all he want, and he knows this too. If we talked in person, we would have the conversation. I'd be like, AG, we can have these conversations all we want. You guys just got to go out there and do it now. Shout out to fellas. Go out there and do it. Be dogs.
Well, I think the big part about being a defensive coordinator is establishing a system to where players can just play fast and they don't have to think. And that also takes some time. On top of that, especially when you have a young defense. They have the youngest defense this year. They had one of the youngest last year. that's why it's taken AG some time, not only acquiring talent, and Brad's done a good job of helping him out with that, drafting players, signing players, trading for players, etc. But the other part is with a young defense is just getting these guys to just go out there, play fast, not think. And I think that's what Jack Campbell's going to do. That's what I think Aiden and these guys always just don't. They just go out there and play. But guys like Iffy now, Kirby, Terrion will do that eventually, but that's how it should go. Derek Barnes is another one, just going out there and playing fast. So I think AG is a very, very bright coach. I do. And I think his leadership is something that organizations are going to be interested in. You brought it up that defensive coordinators get, they don't get jobs as often, but, they're going to get an opportunity. I think what helps that is having that leadership quality. That's going to help you. Like D'Amico Ryans, hell of a leader. That helps, because I'm not hiring you just to be, especially in an offensive league, just to be a very, very smart defensive-minded coach. Can you establish a culture? Are you a leader of men? D'Amico Ryans is that. John Harbaugh is that. Other guys that are defensive-minded coaches, they're that. I mean, even Eberflus, who we're not a huge fan of, what did we, when we had Bears media members on, they bring up his leadership or the locker room buying in, like that matters. So I think AG is a capable head coach. I think he will get an opportunity eventually. And I do think, depending on the situation, that helps. But I think he will be successful. It will work out for him because he just gets it. And he's a former player, so players respect that. So I'm a big fan of AG. And I think it'll work out this year. Top 10, maybe I'm not as high on it as you are, but I think they'll be way better than they were this year.
Here's the thing, the Booner's top 10 point that I think a lot of people forget about. The Lions last year, and Aaron Glenn definitely does not get enough credit for this. Yeah, their secondary was terrible, but they had the number 2 rush defense in all of the NFL. And you talk about Jack Campbell stepping up, bringing in DJ Reader. That's going to help that. So this is a team that could be the number 1 rush defense of the NFL potentially. Maybe they could take a step back and be number 3. But that secondary was probably bottom 25 in the NFL, and you were really relying on that secondary not to play good football, but to play good situational football, because you saw Christian Watson getting burned down the field at home, and they're like, all right, let's switch it to zone. Switch it to zone, and you're just getting cooked. So finally, after that game, he's like, all right, we can't rely on stopping teams all the way down the field. We have to let teams, if they get inside the 20, that's fine, but you're taking 3. I think this year, Aaron Glenn's finally just going to be able to play defense. I think it's going to be more of a top 12 defense, but when you're saying that, could they easily be top 10 at that point? Absolutely, especially if the run defense stays the same.
By the way, too, in that video, I thought it was interesting. Like, Iffy Melifonwu, in the final, well, I think he, since that Bears game that he kind of really started playing and was back from injury, he had 8 games, I think, and I think he had 5 sacks, like counting the playoffs. He just said in that video, I'm pretty sure if I heard it correctly, he mentioned that he can't wait till this year because he thinks like AG is going to do that a lot more with him and use him more, in those kind of situations, getting to the quarterback and putting him in positions to get sacks. He had 5 in 8 games last year. Like, how many sacks will Iffy Melifonwu, if he stays healthy for 17 games plus the playoffs, like how many sacks will he have if he had 5 in 8 games? Like, he was saying that there was times where AG would scheme it up and he would just be one, like right there with the quarterback, and he's like, this is the easiest sack of all time. Like, if he keeps scheming him up like that, if he comes out of here with 10 sacks, I mean, I don't even,
all right.
What was I mean, he had 5 in 8 games. What are we?
This is the thing, though. This is the thing. They're triple teaming Hutch. I mean, I think Iffy should have around 5 sacks this year, because I think that's still very tremendous for a safety. But we talk about Hutch Defensive Player of the Year. You have to send Iffy and Branch because they're focused on Hutch the whole time. So I think Iffy, he's definitely going to be on those situational type of blitzes. But going back to what we were saying, like, for him to replicate that last stretch of the season, especially when the defense gets better, Iffy could play better, but I don't think that necessarily leads to production. He just might have less of an impact statistically, but on the field, everybody's going to know who Iffy is at this point. You're going to try to stay the fuck away from him.
Well, to be
fair,
fair,
at least more Kirby, more Terrion, more plays for them to make.
To be fair, too, last year, I want to throw that out there because I looked at it and I was like, that's great. He was like 4th on the team in sacks last year, or if you count the playoffs, 3rd. But the thing is, like, they were having to blitz because they had no secondary. Like, that's not going to be the case this year. So it will be a little different, but yeah, no, 5 sacks for Iffy. Like, if he plays 17 games, lock that in.
Watching Iffy was like watching Russell Westbrook on his triple-double streak. I mean, he was just filling up the stat box in every category possible, and it was every week that he was on the field. It was insane to watch because you think that teams would notice. And then it's like
so fun to watch.
The game for the NFC North Like you would think Kevin O'Connell, great offensive head coach, like Iffy's been on a tear, and that's Iffy's best game, and he shuts down the NFC North with a pick to seal it. So I still say I think it'll be Branch and Kirby, but Iffy's still gonna have a season. As far as
he was dialing a phone number with that box score. I mean, that's what Russell Westbrook does. It's just like pass deflection, sack, couple tackles, maybe an interception as well. I mean, he was unbelievable, and he's big. I mean, J-Rod, if he's 6'3", so he's getting his hands on footballs too. I mean, that's just what he does.
I mean, just hearing Iffy talk about AG though, like now like Kirby's had so much success, like Brian Branch had so much success last year. Like why now? Like Terrion, that makes me feel like even better for a guy like Terrion and Amik Robertson and Enos Rakestraw. Like these guys are going to come in and have success because AG is so good at helping these young guys out, kind of form into what they're supposed to be doing, and he puts them in the right. Dude, he's going to have a great secondary.
Think about how happy AG is walking in this season, because last year, I mean, think the season before, they had Juju Hughes, Will Harris out there. That's 2 years ago. Man. They enter into this training camp. He's like, you know what? It's not that bad. We got Emmanuel Mosley. We got Cam Sutton. We got CJ Gardner-Johnson. Oh, Cam Sutton happened to be literally the worst corner in all NFL last year. Gave up the most passing yards out of any corner. Kendall Vildor decides to step in. CJ Gardner-Johnson and Emmanuel Mosley both get hurt. So he's practically left in the same situation in 2023 that he was in 2022. But the expectations are higher for him because the team's better. It's like this man's got to have some type of ingredients to cook a meal if you want to get to the Super Bowl. And he really had none.